we're living in a bizarre world now, and I'm still figuring out how to cope with that.
Y-
I don't know.
y- Yeah, actually, I was having a conversation with my partner about
Mm,
how bizarre the world is.
hmm.
Because one of the things that, like, on Sunday we're going to be talking about is vaccines, like specifically the
Yes.
COVID-19 vaccine.
Mm.
And my partner is a boomer, and he, yes, he is.
Do you mean that in the generational sense or in the internet speak sense?
No, in the generational sense.
Okay, gotcha.
However, sometimes when we have conversations, I'm like, okay, boomer. But anyway, I
I
love
get
you.
see this is the whole thing because people don't get this. Boomers a mentality, right? I'm not
Mm,
talking about how old you are. If I'm calling you a boomer, that just means you're saying something that's kind of a boomer thing to say. That's all that means. I get a lot of pushback on that in comments from some
mm,
of my older audiences that watch me and older audiences that love me. I love all of you. Just you
mm.
can't say boomer things. There are boomer things that you can say that you shouldn't say. So that's all I mean about that.
Yeah, the more problematic boomerisms that might fall out of one's mouth, you should not say that. But one of the things that we were talking about specifically is that he would talk about how when he was in school, how they would line the children up for polio vaccines,
Mm,
and no one ever questioned getting their vaccines. Like, they had sent a letter home to the parents, and the parents said, hey, guess what, your kid's about to get, the jab in the arm. And
right.
their parents was like, okay, got their kid to said place, to the school, and to make sure that they got their inoculation. And no one ever questioned, uh, should they do it, or even came up with these weird, twisted explanations of all the adverse things that could happen to one if they got the vaccine, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really kind of wacky that this is the times that we're living in,
Hmm.
where, I think that it is aptly proven that COVID-19 exists.
Right.
And also, I believe that it's aptly proven that people have died from it.
Yes.
And now we have a vaccine. We have several different vaccines now,
Hmm.
that one can get in order to help prevent them from getting COVID, or if they happen to get it, that is going to give them a better defense
Mm,
against it after infection, because breakthrough infections are real. Um,
right.
yeah, but like all these different things that people have said, again, on the Twitters and the YouTubies and all these
Hmm.
other places,
Right.
about, it's just wacky.
It is wacky. It's interesting because, and I'm sure you know this too. Like, anti-vax rhetoric has been around, and it has been around for a while.
Sure.
It's not a brand new thing. I think what we're seeing now in the culture, obviously, is a resurgence in its mainstream popularity.
Mm,
Probably part of because of the internet, because so many people are getting more of their information that way than they used to.
mm,
Because it used to be just not as big a thing. I mean, you can find anti-vax cartoons like 100 years old of people, like political cartoons of people being critical of the science behind the inoculation process and what that looks like and stuff. I think we're seeing a difference, and everybody has their takes, right? Everybody's speculating. I think one of the things is like we've gone through a generation of people who have grown up, who have gotten it in schools, who didn't realize that they had it or didn't realize the effects of it. It didn't realize, like I grew up at a time where polio was already not a thing I had to worry about really in
correct.
my daily life. So like that's my generation, and those around me don't see the real harm of that. And like polio also, the effects of the disease is very dramatic, right? At worst, you can get lifelong paralysis and other kinds of complications that the COVID also can give you complications for. But like at first, when COVID was first on the scene, we were first hearing things, we weren't hearing those stories. Like those
Mhm.
stories weren't out yet. So a big narrative at the time, and I'm sure you remember this too last year, was people saying, oh, this is just another flu. Like we
Right.
don't have to worry about it. So people were already kind of downplaying it. So there's a lot of complicated factors here that I'm sure public health communication specialists are really looking at and really seeing how we can do better on. because I wish the country was more vaccinated as it is. I wish the state of Texas was more vaccinated as it is. We are now probably going to become the second Florida here in terms of number of cases again, as I've been tracking the stats on it. But yeah, it's really bad. It's really awful. So vaccines are real. The Pfizer vaccine and all the other ones are real. You guys should go get it if you haven't already. And I would say, yeah, you can stop watching the show and go get yourself an appointment to do that. I'm okay with that. Go get your vaccines, people.
I am as well. Yeah, just stop. You don't have to do this. Just go. How about that?
Do it. How about that? Absolutely.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm sure it's been frustrating for you, too, as somebody who's been chronicling this and who's been writing about this. I mean, what are your observations on how we can communicate about the efficacy of the vaccine to people?
I've been kind of like wheel head turning about what could be better, like how can we put it into a way that is more digestible for people so that they would be more on the side of getting vaccinated per se. And the only thing I can think of is to shoot everybody who says otherwise. No, kidding. But what I think that what is necessary is really pushing education on this on this topic. Like now I will say that other communities have been really good about galvanizing their people in order to help get them vaccinated. In the beginning of the year, all the way up until June, I was working immunization relays here in the city, and the two communities that were really getting their people together and also making sure that they get vaccinated are the African American community and also the Latinx community. It was even one event that we did where a whole busload of people came. They were coming specifically from a community center that was primarily in a Latinx community. And so they have been really good about going into any place that, people will gather to actually, talk about, the vaccine and why it's important to get, and even helping schedule appointments. And matter of fact, one of the other immunization relays that I worked at, we were at a nightclub, and it was a nightclub that was traditionally for drag queens. It was great.
Oh,
and, yeah,
cool.
Yeah, very cool. And but that was primarily in a Latinx community, and so myself and some other of the workers, we all left the actual venue that we were at and went into different restaurants all up and down the street, like, hey, did you get vaccinated? You can come right now. And we were able to actually pull people,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that it takes more people to be dedicated in order to say, like, hey, we generally care about, humanity and being safe as possible. And if there is something that's out there that they can get for little to nothing out of their pocket, and oftentimes the vaccines are offered to people for free, then let's go ahead and do it. And so that's been the general idea. I just wish that more people would actually adopt that idea.
Isn't it awful though? Because I feel like people are taking the fact that this vaccine is free as even more evidence that this is all some grand plan to stop people, right? Because I have family members who work in healthcare, and one of them is a manager of a team. And this past week, this person has told me that their healthcare company has recently made a policy that everybody has to be vaccinated, right? You'd think that everybody who's working in the industry would already want to be vaccinated if they're not already, but they have different priority levels for which people and staff get it and stuff, right? So two of the people that are on her team, who are both nurses, are quitting because they refuse to get the vaccine. And so that's this wasn't like I said, anti-vax things have been around, but not nurses quitting on whole teams and stuff, right? And this isn't the first story where I'm sure you've heard of this happening. I'm sure you've heard of other people. I've definitely seen other people talk about people who work in health, specifically nurses in particular. I've heard a lot of people just refusing just the science on this and stuff. And it's a weird corruption of our trust in the institution of science and our trust in especially just our medical institutions as a whole. People already have a lot of problems with the American healthcare system. This is just not helping in that
it's
regard.
not. No, it's not.
Like I this has been an ongoing trend. I feel like this is like reflective of a bigger symptom, right?
You know, and see, here's the thing also with the whole issue with healthcare workers.
Mm-hmm.
You do have more people who are employed in the medical industry that
Mm-hmm.
are speaking out against it,
Right.
and they're using their positions to argue authority in
Yeah.
order to dissuade people from getting the vaccine. Um, I even remember like when the pandemic was really, getting at a high point last year. I wish I could remember this guy's name. I think it's Dr. Shiva, the person who claimed that he invented email.
Dr. Shiva.
I
I'm
think
not
that's
sure.
his name. I
You're not talking
think.
about Al Gore, are you? Because Al Gore
Yeah.
invented the internet.
No, he
So
invented the internet. This
right.
person said that he invented email.
Okay.
But I do believe it's Dr. Shiva. If somebody can correct me, I would appreciate it. Hey,
That
call
sounds
in. How about
familiar.
that?
That's right. Call in and we can
Yeah,
talk about it, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
But I remember listening to him being interviewed on one of these obscure YouTube channel news-esque shows.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he said is, and I'm paraphrasing, that HIV is not really deadly. It's not something that can cause one to, lose their life or, something to that effect, because he was trying to compare the COVID-19 virus as, pretty much benign like
Yeah.
HIV. And I
Yeah.
was like, no.
You're like the
No.
one person where you can't talk to about that, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yes. I was like, no, that is exactly no, you are so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. Like,
Mhm.
we have too many people, or I would say too many people with doctor or other credentials in front of or behind their names that
Mhm.
are being loud and wrong
Right.
in
I
these
agree.
cases.
I agree. And that's obviously not just a US thing, but we do see it in the US, and we do see it like, look, if your chiropractor is telling you not to get the vaccine, don't listen to your chiropractor.
No.
Right? Like I that kind of stuff makes you mad. A lot of the naturopaths out there are saying the same kinds of things. It's almost like it's trendy. It's almost like it's just trendy. I wonder if people would lose clout in their individual communities if they supported the vaccine. I genuinely think that's got to be part of it, right?
Right. I mean, because
Yeah.
okay, so here's the thing, people. I have crystals, but they're pretty, right? But they're not going to heal me from anything. All
Yeah,
right.
right. Yeah,
You know,
your crystal salt lamps are not going to give you negative ions.
No.
Okay, that's just not.
No.
They look cool though. I will say that they look cool, but
Right. I mean,
yeah.
like, I have a salt lamp that when I turn off all the lights in my room and I just turn that off, it reflects like really cool off my walls and whatnot. So they look cool and they're cool to look at.
Yeah.
But they cure nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
It's weird that, and I want to talk about this later if we have time, because I think we should get to some calls now. But there is an interesting history of HIV denialism as its own unique movement that I wanted to kind of talk to you about too. But we're about at that time where we should get to some calls now.